Glacier, in the state of Montana, wakes up with the icy breath that announces the arrival of winter. Snow covers the trails with a fragile crust. The pines carry frost that shimmers in the low light of day, and the air cuts the skin like a blade. In this landscape of hard lines and long shadows, a pack of wolves concentrates its world on the terrain they can traverse on foot. At the head advance the dominant female and male, bodies marked by the scars of many seasons, attentive gazes examining every fold of the earth. Behind them, their adult children form a tight line, marching in the synchronicity of those who have shared too much hardship. Meat hasn't appeared in their mouths for days, and hunger becomes a constant pressure, but social discipline remains intact, like a life-saving custom. The dominant female stops, breathes in the wind, looks at the hills, and moves forward again without a sound, while the others follow her dull but steady pace. One of the young men climbs a mound, treads carefully on the snow, observes the contours of the terrain, and then descends to signal with a silent gesture that the passage is safe. Each wolf adjusts its gait, lengthens or shortens its step, tilts its head, and follows the cue precisely without the need for words. The pack knows how to read the terrain, and through that reading it manages its energy, detects danger and avoids wasting energy. In the distance, a silhouette stands out from the white cloak. He is a deer, solitary and vigilant. Alone and separated from his group, he rummages among the dry shoots that peek out from under the snow. The pack senses it immediately. The wolves hold their breath, stare, and feel the animal's stillness trigger their pent-up hunger and awaken their hunting instinct. The dominant female stretches her neck and fixes her gaze on the distant figure, while the pack following her adjusts their steps and the position of their bodies, alert to the prey and the direction of the wind that could reveal its approach. One wolf inclines its head slightly, indicating that the female may advance. Another gently advances a paw to cover the pack's side, and with quick glances, they silently confirm each other's movements, measuring steps and pauses to maintain the cohesion of the hunting formation. Each wolf takes the position that best allows it to protect the group and take advantage of the shelter offered by the terrain. The plan takes shape with the same economy that has governed his entire life in the mountains, and the roles are defined without words. Some advance on the sides, maintaining a certain distance between each other to close off possible escape routes, while others act as a mobile barrier, moving their steps in a line to push the prey towards the chosen corridor, and a couple remain in reserve, strategically positioned to cover the gaps and cut off the path if the deer tries to turn towards the thicket. The alpha female checks positions with a brief glance. The alpha male adjusts his stance and stakes out a different flank, and the pack falls into the formation that has worked so many times before, motionless for a moment while the maneuver is mapped out, the hunting machine ready to act. The deer, as it buries its snout among the dry stems that stick out from under the snow, perceives an imperceptible change, a vibration that does not correspond to the usual murmur of the forest. As he jerks his head up, his neck tenses and his ears spin in alert as he senses danger, his heart racing even before he sees it. Then his gaze meets the grey of the wolf on the snow, and without thinking he sets off running, breaking the stillness of the frozen landscape. The group responds instantly. No one needs the other's command because the movement of the deer is enough for them to begin moving in coordination. The alpha male runs after the line he was trying to close, while the female maintains the center of pressure. The young people spread out in a fan, maintaining the chase, and although the distance is long, there is no confusion. Each member follows the planned course, while the prey tries to break the order of the ambush. The deer doesn't give in easily. Despite its hunger, need drives it forward with speed as each stride tears through the snow, leaping over roots, dodging low branches, and stretching with a resilience that only the survival instinct can provide. Behind them, the wolves don't rush. They maintain the same rhythm, synchronized in the same direction, not allowing them to escape into corners where they would be lost from sight. Suddenly, the unexpected happens. The deer doesn't flee into open fields or dense thickets, but instead heads toward a clearing where its group is hiding. The still bodies of other deer are revealed among the undergrowth, sheltered in a safe place until that moment. The arrival of the fugitive betrays them, and in an instant everything changes. One of them is the first to perceive the danger, and also the first to escape with redoubled speed. His alarm spreads to the rest, who shake off their lethargy with a belated start. The clearing erupts into chaos. Hooves thump, branches snap, bodies scatter in multiple directions. Some flee resolutely, certain of the exit. Others barely manage to get up, bewildered by the sudden stampede. Amidst the din, the line of wolves bursts forth like a shadow. Not all deer have the same advantage. The first to flee manages to lose himself among his own people and gain distance, while behind, the slowest remains exposed, caught in the disorder of the stampede. The capture is swift. The eldest of the youngsters closes the gap and knocks him sideways, while the rest close the circle with precision. The prey is secured, and with it the herd obtains what it has been seeking for days: fresh meat. Still, the outcome doesn't come immediately. The deer bellows loudly, the snow shaking under its haphazard kicks, but the combined pressure of the wolves keeps it on the ground. Wolves don't seek to kill him in one fell swoop like a feline would. They grab the sides of the body, bite the neck to immobilize it, and continue to wear it down until resistance gives way. It's a stark ending that reflects the law of survival in Glacier. Far from there, the deer that started the escape joins the group that managed to escape. He gasps heavily, each breath seems to burn his lungs. Yet he has managed to survive. Not in an orderly or heroic way, but with the audacity to put his instinct before that of others. On this occasion, individual strategy has outweighed herd cooperation. That seemingly questionable choice has allowed him to prolong his life for a few more hours in an environment that does not forgive indecision. For wolves, however, success is measured on a different scale. They have barely managed to get a hold, but that is the difference between starvation and resistance. The herd has once again employed a tactic perfected in previous winters, in which the movement of a single deer inadvertently betrays the position of the entire herd. Although they did not manage to capture all the deer as they might have hoped, the prey they did catch was enough to satisfy their hunger and sustain the herd. The glacier forest is giving them, at least for today, some much-needed food. The deer's body lies in the damp leaves. The chase is over, but the tension doesn't dissolve with victory. On the contrary, what follows demands the same precision and attention as hunting, a moment in which every gesture and every breath determines how the balance settles in Glacier. Days have passed without tasting meat, and hunger beats in every glance, in every labored breath. The herd gathers around the still warm body, and in that circle a rule older than memory prevails. The leaders eat first. The alpha male advances with his head held high, his tail held high, a posture that radiates absolute dominance. At her side, the alpha female takes her place without hesitation. Both are the only ones allowed to claim the first bite. The rest of the wolves, the now adult offspring, keep a short distance away. The patience they display is not passive obedience, but a self-control shaped by hierarchy. Their empty stomachs twist inside them, but they know that no shortcut will lead them to meat any sooner. The female sinks her fangs into the deer's flank, taking the first moist, fibrous morsel. The male leans over the animal's neck, and between bites he raises his gaze, fixed and vigilant. Yellow eyes scan the circle, measuring the intentions of each subordinate. The youngest are the first to test the norm. They approach step by step, their snouts stretched toward the fresh blood. The male needs nothing more than a deep, low growl that vibrates like a warning buried in the throat. His jaw, stained red, opens slightly, revealing his fangs. The signal is clear. Their turn has not yet come, but hunger clouds prudence. One of the youngsters crosses the invisible boundary and gets too close to the side of the dam. The male responds with a quick, accurate movement and delivers a firm, brief, inhibitory bite to the intruder's neck. It does not tear or wound, but it leaves a mark that burns more than pain and establishes the insurmountable boundary of hierarchy. The young man immediately retreats with his body hunched and his tail between his legs. His ears are folded back in a clear posture of submission. He doesn't bite back or dare to confront. Obedience prevails. The others watch and learn. One grunts in frustration, another jumps away, shaking his head as if trying to shake off his anxiety. But none of them respond with open defiance. They wouldn't. They are their children, and blood ties sustain the invisible structure of the group. Hunger may corrode patience, but it never destroys order. The scene repeats itself in cycles. Each time one of the young animals attempts to advance, it receives the same response. A growl, a fixed stare, a snapping of jaws in the air, or the brief pressure of an inhibitory bite. The tension is constant, like an electric field that runs through the circle of expectant bodies. The male stands tall between bites, chewing calmly, as if this serenity were another form of dominance. His tail is held erect, swaying slightly, a reminder of his authority. Meanwhile, the alpha female continues to feed at his side. Their role is no less decisive. Their mere presence deters even the most insistent subordinates. Together, they form a core of power that the rest accept without question, even when hunger threatens to break all discipline. The subordinates wait, attentive to any gesture that indicates the opening of the meal for them. They take one step forward and 2 steps back. They circle the corpse with nervous movements, inhaling the metallic smell of blood, watching each bite of their parents with a mixture of respect and desperation. In their eyes shines the promise of flesh, but they must still wait. The air is filled with sounds, the wet crunching of bones, warning growls, the panting of impatient wolves. Beneath the interrupted stillness, as the alpha male began to give way for the rest to approach the deer carcass, an imperceptible change in the air became present. The wind carries a dense, strange smell, full of threat. None of the young people ignore it, their bodies tense and their ears turn towards the thicket. A deep murmur, the distant growl of a beast, confirms the inevitable. A huge, dark figure emerges from between the trunks, seeming to multiply the shadows of the forest. And it soon becomes clear that it is a grizzly bear. His massive, heavy body moves forward with a firm step, driven by the hunger that urges him on before winter. He's ready to challenge the herd in order to claim the carrion. He's been sniffing at the meat for miles, and he's not stopping. The younger ones instinctively retreat, aware that facing such a giant is foolish. The alpha female emits a low growl, caught between defense and caution. But the male, with the deer's blood still fresh in his jaws, doesn't move away. He maintains his upright posture, head high and tail tense. Everything about him is a statement. He doesn't give in, not in the face of an intruder, not after days of hunger, not when the food is under the weight of its conquest. The bear doesn't accelerate. His gait is slow, sure, aware that the imbalance of power is on his side. The ground crunches beneath his paws, and with each step, the tension increases. When he is a few meters away, the air is filled with deep, prolonged growls in a confrontation that precedes the collision. The agile alpha male makes the first move. He leaps to the side, seeks out the intruder's exposed flank, and sinks his fangs into the thick skin of the shoulder. The grizzly reacts with a heavy swipe that kicks up leaves and dirt, although the wolf manages to retreat in time. A struggle begins around the deer carcass. The alpha attacks in bursts with short charges, quick bites and agile retreats. The bear responds with its enormous strength, advancing forward and pushing bodies aside with the sheer power of its mass. One of its claws reaches the wolf's back and leaves a bloody but not fatal furrow. The enraged male charges again and bites the legs to prevent it from dragging the carcass. The earth turns red amidst the grunts that echo in the clearing. The bear, irritated by the resistance, grabs part of the deer in its mouth and pulls violently. The dead body suddenly moves, and at that moment the wolf attacks again, trying to prevent the loss. Then comes the fatal blow. The grizzly rears up on its hind legs and slashes down brutally at the alpha's flank. The impact throws him to the ground, and the entire herd comes to a standstill. The grizzly needs no more. With heavy but firm movements, he takes what he can carry from the deer and walks away into the thicket, leaving an unbearable silence behind him. The alpha's children don't move. Their bodies tremble. Frustration boils in their throats, but none of them dare take a step. The alpha female, on the other hand, approaches. He lies down next to his companion, presses his snout against the open wound, and licks in a gesture as instinctive as it is useless. The male breathes with difficulty, each exhalation weaker than the last, and his half-open eyes still search the surroundings as if his vigilance cannot cease. Around them, the young birds gather in a circle. Some let out low, drawn-out howls that merge with the rustling of the wind through the trees. Others remain motionless, their ears drooping, unable to tear their gaze away from their wounded leader. The hierarchy, so rigid in hunting and food, is now expressed in silent respect. No one approaches aggressively, no one challenges the female's intimate space next to the fallen. The hours drag on in the forest's gloom. The pack has satiated the hunger that plagued them for days on end, but the price has proved higher than any full stomach. The male, who led so many battles and defended his conquest until the last moment, slowly fades away. The female remains at his side without moving away, prostrate with her head on his body. The entire night passes in vigil. No one leaves the clearing. The young people stand close together, some lying down, others standing up, as if awaiting an outcome that none of them desires. There, beneath the open Montana autumn sky, the wolf family guards their fallen leader, surrounding his body in a circle that neither hunger nor defeat can break. Darkness slowly begins to subside. A pale gray filters through the Glacier fir trees, announcing the end of the night. The snow reflects the first light, and every creak of branches under light paws becomes more audible. The pack remains gathered after an endless vigil. The motionless body of the alpha male lies in the clearing, a silent witness to what happened. The alpha female remains at his side, rigid, her eyes fixed on the figure who was her companion and guide. The stillness is not broken, although hunger demands answers again. The young disperse among the trunks. The forest doesn't offer abundant prey, but it still has small animals that can sustain them for a few hours. Some manage to surprise a hare running through the snow. Another digs until he finds a field mouse. They are not rewards worthy of such a large group, but every bite counts. Despite the pain, bodies move with discipline. The need for nourishment prevents grief from turning into abandonment. In the clearing, the alpha female takes a deep breath. She has kept vigil for her fallen comrade, but she knows that time grants no respite. Winter will not stop their advance, and the cubs are no longer dependent, but they are still children who require direction. With a slow movement, the wolf sits up. The wind lifts her dark fur. There's a pause, barely a second, where pain and instinct seem to collide. Then the decision is imposed. Life goes on, and she must guide it. He raises his head and lets out a deep howl. The sound resonates across the mountains and valleys, vibrant and steady. It is not just any call, it is the proclamation of leadership. Miles away, another movement is taking place. It's not an act of mourning, but rather one of collective need. On the lower slopes, a herd of deer is moving south. The arrival of winter spells its doom. Snow begins to cover the ground, burying the grass that until recently fed hundreds of thousands. If they remained, starvation would be inevitable. Therefore, generation after generation, they travel ancient routes, guided by the memory of the oldest females. The groups are enormous. Dozens of bodies join together to form herds that can number more than 500 individuals. The whole thing moves forward like a living stream that never completely stops. The young trot alongside their mothers, still clumsy on the icy ground, but learning to keep pace. The males, weakened after weeks of fighting during the rut, close ranks with effort, providing strength but without the prominence they displayed in the fall. The social order is clear. Adult females lead, set the direction, and choose safe passages between valleys and slopes. Their experience defines the routes to meadows where snow accumulates less and forage still flourishes. The rest follow that guide with instinctive discipline, knowing that dispersing means exposing themselves to predators or getting trapped in uncultivated territory. Unity is the survival strategy. The pace is steady and measured. Migration is not a race, but a tenacious journey that can last for weeks. Every night, bodies huddle together, breathing together in patches of warmth that contrast with the frost. Every morning, footsteps echo again on the hardened snow, forming an ancient choreography that ensures the continuity of the species. As they advance, the mountains close in on the horizon, marking a corridor they must cross to escape the shortage. The line moves like an endless river where each body follows the previous, driven by the need and memory of the veteran females. Their destination is lower lands, where winter is less cruel and the stalks of grass still emerge from the frost, offering a momentary respite from the harshness of the climate. Every delay becomes a weakness, and every weakness opens the door to death, remembering that urgency is not measured in days, but in moments. The forest watches silently. The same cold that forces the deer to migrate has hardened the wolves, who advance among the slopes, patiently following their prey's footsteps without disturbing the calm of the landscape. A barely perceptible trail cuts through the silence, fresh footprints in the snow, broken branches, a strange smell that the deer cannot perceive. Every movement of the herd is carefully calculated, each step measured to remain hidden among shadows and logs. The deer continue their march, confident in the routine that has guided their ancestors, ignoring the presence of predators. However, wolves accompany them in parallel, invisible but ever-present, a constant danger that lurks patiently and precisely, waiting for the exact moment the hunt will begin. The alpha female observes. Her experience outweighs her hunger, and she doesn't attack on instinct. With his conduct, he teaches that success depends on opportunity. Beside him, the eldest son is buzzing with impatience, his tense body betraying his desire to jump in prematurely. A glance is enough to stop him. The time has not yet come. As the hours pass in silence, the wolves advance parallel to the flock, moving with measured steps and observing every detail, alert for the exact opportunity to intervene. They look for weaknesses in their prey. They observe those who are tired, those who are distracted, those who have become distant. The wait becomes unbearable until the terrain finally offers the opportunity. A narrow clearing opens between the trees, and the copse forces the herd to slow down and bunch together, limiting their escape options. The sign is invisible, but everyone understands it, and the eldest son waits no longer. That's when he leaps forward first, breaking the silence with a burst of movement. His legs close the distance in seconds, and behind him, others fan out to close the retreat. The attack has begun. The herd stirs in a panic, and bodies begin to collide with each other. Antlers are raised like spears, while hooves thunder against the ground, intensifying the chaos of the flight. The alpha female steers with precision, pushing toward a point where the terrain forces the deer to cluster together, reducing their escape options. The tactic is effective. A small group is isolated and vulnerable, but among them, a male with imposing antlers doesn't flee. He spins around furiously. He snorts, lowers his head, and points his antlers at the wolf. It is an unexpected challenge. She advances with a confident step, trying to intimidate him. He wants to force it back like so many others have done before, but the deer responds and charges with all the power of its body. The impact is brutal, a sharp blow that hits the side. The wolf darts to one side, and a dark stream stains the ground. The male does not stop to finish off the animal because his instinct drives him to flee, and with the same impulse he returns to the herd, which disperses in a stampede. Meanwhile, the eldest son chases a straggling juvenile. He corners it with the help of others, jumping on its back and snapping his jaws at its neck. The animal struggles, resisting, but the wolves are too many. The body gives way under the combined pressure, and the prey falls. The group begins to tear, blood stains the ground, and hunger finally finds relief. At the edge of the clearing, the alpha female lies wounded. She limps, breathing heavily. The eldest son breaks his frenzy and approaches. She looks at him, and in that look there is something more than pain. There is silent recognition. Time is running out. Her breathing becomes ragged until it dies away. The body remains motionless, lying on the ground. The rest of the pack keeps its distance. There's no ritual or lament, but a heavy silence. The loss is evident in the tension in their bodies. For a few moments, no one approaches the newly caught prey. The eldest son stands upright beside the fallen wolf. Then he takes a step forward. His posture is raised, head high, tail stiff. The others observe it, and the transition is automatic. There is no dispute. His youthful energy, his boldness in attack legitimize him. He has become the new alpha. The pack resumes its feast. They tear at fresh meat, tear at fibers, and fill empty stomachs. Tension gives way to survival instinct. Hunger finds calm, but the air does not lose the weight of what happened. As the hours pass, in a corner of the clearing lies the body of the old alpha, silent. Before her, Her descendants devour the prey they secured under her leadership, but now guided by another. In nature, every meal comes at a price, and every leadership comes with an inevitable succession. The life of the pack continues, although marked by the blood that has sealed the change. But beyond this clearing, the cycle continues. Glacier holds even harsher evidence, and winter is about to reveal it. At the top of the mountains, temperatures drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius, while the relentless wind makes the cold even more pronounced. At first glance, the landscape could be mistaken for a white desert, a place where no living being could sustain itself for more than a few hours. However, in the midst of this extreme scenario, the figure of an animal emerges that has made the impossible its territory. Clinging to rock walls, the Rocky Mountain goat defies the harshest and deadliest season. 100 meters above the valley floor, it advances on a ledge barely wider than its hooves, and each step demonstrates a confidence that few animals could match, defying the verticality of the mountain. Her presence at these heights has made her a symbol of the park, a figure that embodies Glacier's identity and the power of its wild surroundings. It isn't found in the valleys where moose take refuge, nor in the forests where wolves or bears prowl. Its domain is in the heights where the wind cuts and the air becomes thin. What ensures its survival in this environment is not a simple act of resistance, but a set of physical and behavioral adaptations that make it extraordinarily suited to survive in these conditions. Among these adaptations, their fur stands out as a natural shield, combining an inner layer of dense wool that retains heat with an outer layer of long, oiled hairs that repel moisture and ice. This natural shelter allows it to withstand temperatures that would be unbearable for most mammals in the region. Their hooves reveal another secret of their survival. Hard on the outside and soft in the center, they adhere precisely to the steepest surfaces like suction cups that defy gravity. Each movement is calculated and sensitive, its hooves sensing the slightest irregularities in the rock, adjusting each step to maintain perfect balance. Thanks to this specialization, he can climb slopes of up to 60 degrees even when they are covered in frost, making the mountains his safe haven. In the middle of winter, when the snow buries all traces of vegetation, resistance is not enough, and the mountain goat must find a way to find food. Moving vertically through the mountain, it climbs and descends cliffs and slopes to reach the lichens and mosses attached to the rock. When that source is scarce, it patiently digs through layers of hardened ice, and if that's still not enough, it takes advantage of the dry shoots left exposed by the wind. Its position at these heights, inaccessible to any other animal, always guarantees it access to food that only it can reach. Each bite requires a disproportionate expenditure of energy, yet it is still enough to sustain it through the toughest season. Their bodies have found a way to survive on the bare minimum. A ruminant's digestive system extracts nutrients from almost worthless lichens and dry shoots, while its thick fur retains heat and minimizes energy loss. In an environment where everything seems condemned to the silence of ice, the mountain goat turns the insignificant into sustenance. This ability is not a result of chance, but the result of a long evolutionary history. Over millions of years, your species has perfected a stomach capable of fermenting fibers impossible for other mammals, with microorganisms that break down what would seem inedible. Chewing on each bite over and over again ensures that nothing goes to waste. Thus, what for most animals would be just a worthless crust is transformed into enough energy for them to survive. Therein lies part of its originality as a species, because where the mountain seems to offer nothing, it finds what is essential to continue. But that same ability to move and feed in the most inaccessible corners of the mountain comes at a cost, because the cliff that protects it also becomes its greatest challenge. The ice may give way beneath her hooves, stones may come loose, and the force of the wind threatens to destabilize her. Even the fatigue accumulated from hours of traveling on extreme slopes increases the likelihood of an error. A fall of a few meters would be enough to end their resistance, and that's why every movement is calculated down to the millimeter. Its compact musculature provides stability, and its short tail helps balance each jump. Each goat seems to measure each movement with mathematical precision, aware that a mistake doesn't allow for second chances, and it is this combination of physical adaptation, experience, and concentration that allows it to constantly challenge an environment where danger is always real. What's most surprising is that, unlike other species that disappear from the winter landscape through migration or hibernation, the mountain goat remains visible. It doesn't hide. From the park's natural overlooks, on days when the blizzard stops, its silhouette can be seen silhouetted against the mountaintops, a reminder that life in Glacier not only persists but adapts in impressive ways. Even in groups, their behavior conveys the idea of loneliness. Each goat moves independently, as if the challenge of winter were an individual test that is not shared. In Glacier, the mountain isn't simply a passive backdrop. It's a protagonist, capable of shaping the character of the species that inhabit it. For the mountain goat, it is both a refuge and a threat, a space that offers protection from hunters, but which exacts a constant price in the form of wear and tear and risk. This duality is what makes it the perfect emblem of this park, a place of extreme beauty, but also of perpetual difficulties. While high in the park, the mountain goats wage this silent battle, in the valleys another scenario unfolds, equally conditioned by winter. Their snow also marks the limits of survival, but the adaptation strategies are different. The question that arises is inevitable. If this almost impossible species survives on the most unforgiving peaks, how do animals that depend on forests and lakes cope with the same season? In this white world, where winter dictates every move, an unexpected inhabitant appears, the true ghost of the alpine forests. The Wolverine emerges from the gusts of wind, a creature that not only resists the cold, but makes it its best ally. His compact figure moves easily across the hardened surface. Snow, which for others is a death trap, is fertile ground for him. With wide paws that act like natural snowshoes, it glides firmly over the icy crust. In Montana, few animals inspire as much respect as this one, not only because it is one of the most solitary and elusive carnivores on the continent, but also because it maintains one of the last breeding populations in the country. The park is not just their home, it's a vital refuge that ensures their presence in the United States. The Wolverine isn't limited to a small territory. It travels dozens of kilometers in a single day, traversing slopes that deter even the most powerful predators. Winter doesn't confine it, it expands it. Every storm opens a new opportunity. While others seek shelter, he comes out into the open, dragging the icy wind on his back, covered in a dense coat that repels frost like a second armor. On a hillside, the stiff leg of an ungulate sticks out, trapped under the snow. The carcass of a moose, buried after a minor avalanche, becomes the center of the action. The Wolverine found it, not by chance, but thanks to a finely tuned sense of smell that detects food even under layers of ice. This is not a spectacular hunt, but rather a discovery that exemplifies their strategy. With jaw strength disproportionate to its size, it tears off chunks of frozen meat that others would find impossible to chew. He doesn't keep everything. He transports fragments to hiding places he digs himself in the snow. There, the low temperatures will preserve food for weeks, ensuring that even the harshest shortages won't catch you unprepared. This logistics sets it apart from other glacier carnivores. The wolf needs the cooperation of the pack. The puma relies on the surprise and power of its attack. The bear, when not hibernating, relies on seasonal abundance, but the wolverine, on the other hand, makes dispersal and tenacity his master strategy. It doesn't matter that the snow covers every trace of food. He tracks it, secures it, and stores it. This resilience is what has allowed it to survive in an ecosystem where winter is unforgiving. In the harshest months, this same snow offers an unexpected benefit. When a female prepares to give birth, she digs burrows in deep layers. The tunnels protect the young not only from the extreme cold, but also from predators who never suspect what lurks beneath the white surface. In Glacier, these burrows represent the continuity of the species, an intimate respite amidst hostility. The ice that freezes so many is transformed into a protective blanket. The wolverine's endurance isn't measured in brute strength or speed. It's measured in its ability to survive where most couldn't even survive. Every kilometer traveled over deep snow, every piece of meat stored under the ice, every litter raised in burrows dug in winter, are testaments to an adaptation that is unparalleled. Silence returns after the storm, and the glutton disappears into the blizzard with the piece of meat in his snout. It is a shadow that dissolves into the infinite white, a symbol of absolute resistance in a lethal environment. But when the blizzard subsides and the snow stops lashing, another presence dominates the landscape. Who moves now among the trunks hardened by the cold, under the stillness left by the storm? The blizzard begins to abate on the slopes of Glacier National Park. Among the trunks hardened by the cold, a tree remains bent under the weight of the snow. What appears to be part of the inert landscape begins to move. With a sudden jolt, snow falls from outstretched wings. It's not a branch, it's a bald eagle. She spent the entire night motionless, weathering the storm to keep safe the most valuable thing she has, her offspring. Beneath her body, hidden in a barely visible nest, 2 chicks await the food that will ensure their survival. In Glacier, winter isn't a time of rest. It's the busiest season, forcing every animal to redouble their efforts. Extreme cold and scarcity do not stop life. On the contrary, they make it more demanding. While many birds migrate to milder latitudes, the bald eagle remains here. He doesn't back down from the challenge, but rather adapts to it. This permanence makes it a symbol of resistance, a living emblem of what it means to face adversity without guarantees. The bird shakes once more, and the weight of the snow falls on its talons. The storm has passed, but the real test is just beginning. Her young need food, and the energy stored in her body is quickly depleted in such low temperatures. The eagle takes to the air, its wings cutting firmly through the wind. In summer, rivers and lakes provide an abundance of fish, but now, covered in ice, they force a change of strategy. The bird turns to another source of sustenance. Its gaze falls on a clearing below, where a hare zigzags across the snow. Dressed in her winter white fur, she relies on camouflage. Among branches and shadows, she appears invisible, but the eagle's eye easily penetrates that illusion. The hunt begins, and from high above, the bird of prey folds its wings and dives down. The silence of the icy air is broken by a sharp crash. The hare tries to escape, jumping, running, leaving quick footprints on the soft surface, but the eagle adjusts its trajectory with surgical precision. Its strength lies not in long chases, but in the instant of decision. In a final movement, it extends its claws and catches its prey. The scene is harsh, raw, but not gratuitous. The sacrifice of the hare ensures food for the chicks waiting in the nest. Here, hunting is not a spectacle, it is a responsibility. Every flight, every attack is a gamble that can fail, but must be attempted again and again. The difference between success and failure not only marks the life of the adult bird, but also the continuity of its lineage. With the prey in its talons, the eagle takes flight. The wind picks up again, snow blows white clouds in the valley. The bird moves against the current, expending vital energy to return to its refuge. Its strength is measured both in muscle and determination. Nothing ensures that I will make it. Nothing guarantees that there will be another opportunity tomorrow. However, the impulse that guides her is more powerful than doubt. The offspring awaits, and that's enough to keep it moving. Upon reaching the nest, the eagle places the prey in front of the chicks. The young break the stillness with high-pitched screeches and pounce on the meat. His mother watches, keeps watch, stays alert. There's no rest, not even now. The cold bites, the blizzard returns, but the nest has food and the lifeline extends another day. In Glacier, survival doesn't depend on waiting for the storm to pass. Here, animals take action even in the most adverse moments. The bald eagle embodies that philosophy. It doesn't migrate, it doesn't retreat. It stands in the heart of winter and faces its harshness with resolve. Every day of hunting, every night spent in the canopy of a snow-covered tree is a testament to resilience. In this park, where ice defines the landscape and the cold seems insurmountable, the bald eagle demonstrates that resilience is not an option, but a condition of existence. Their efforts sustain their offspring, ensuring that the most important lesson is passed on to the next generation. Never give up in the face of adversity, even when there are no guarantees of success. The bald eagle's nest is left behind, hidden among snow-covered branches. But not all mothers fly over the park from high above. In the icy valleys of Glacier, closer to the ground, other creatures face a different challenge. At the base of a fir tree, a small mound of snow stirs. A reddish silhouette cautiously emerges, the steam from its breath contrasting with the freezing air. It's an American red squirrel. From a distance, it might seem fragile in the face of a winter that saps energy and silences the forest. But the reality is different. This animal carries in its genetics a repertoire of strategies so precise that they seem designed to challenge the impossible. And at the heart of that effort is not their individual survival, but that of their offspring. The female shakes the snow off her fur and advances along a seemingly invisible path engraved in her memory for months. She's not looking for food for herself. Her goal is something else: to check out one of the middens, a cache of pine cones and seeds she prepared before the snow covered the ground. Every step is a risk, as the energy consumed by moving in these temperatures could be the difference between surviving or succumbing. But it is a calculated risk, necessary to ensure food for the young waiting inside the burrow. The secret to its resilience begins long before winter. During the fall, this squirrel forages tirelessly. It doesn't do this randomly. Each fruit, each pine cone, each seed is transported to specific hiding places that it builds underground or at the base of trees. The accuracy of his spatial memory is astonishing. Although the snow hides all traces, he remembers the exact location of dozens of warehouses scattered throughout the forest. That invisible map is an evolutionary legacy that ensures that, even in the midst of the white hell, your reserves are safe. But stockpiling supplies isn't enough. Extreme cold can make any food resource inaccessible. This is where another of their evolutionary superpowers comes into play: the ability to tunnel through hardened snow. With quick and precise movements, he makes his way to the frozen ground where the cones remain protected. Its efficiency is vital. Spending too much energy on the search would be suicidal. It's not a strict hibernator. Unlike other species that choose to hibernate, the American red squirrel remains active throughout the winter. Their metabolism alternates between brief periods of deep rest and moments of intense activity. This pattern allows you to save energy without completely abandoning the monitoring of your warehouses, because here, every pineapple has incalculable value, not just for itself, but for the tiny lives that depend on its return. Inside the burrow, the young await. The shelter is no makeshift hollow. The female has lined it with moss, bark, and dried grasses collected in the summer, creating thermal insulation that attenuates the icy wind. There, in that small dark chamber, each visit from the mother means food and warmth. Motherhood, in Glacier, isn't tenderness, it's active resistance. And every day that keeps them alive is a victory against an environment that doesn't grant second chances. The danger, however, is constant. While digging for a hiding place, the female stops abruptly. His whiskers twitch, the silence becomes tense. From the nearby snow, an ermine glides like a shadow. Its elongated body, designed for hunting in narrow tunnels, poses a lethal threat to a distracted mother. Time is compressed. If the squirrel is even a second late, not only she, but her babies too will be lost. With a nimble leap, he disappears among the low branches of the fir tree. The stoat follows her for a moment, but her speed and knowledge of the terrain give her the advantage. A mistake here would mean the end of an entire generation, but the female manages to escape, and she does so with the most valuable thing still intact: the possibility of returning to the nest with provisions. In Glacier, survival isn't always about defeating the enemy. Sometimes it's simply about escaping and holding out for another day. Her story reveals a broader truth. In an ecosystem where winter seems to wipe out all life, survival depends not on ignoring the cold, but on anticipating it, on devising strategies that turn it into a manageable enemy. The American red squirrel does not challenge winter with brute strength, but with intelligence, with memory, with discipline. That's their evolutionary legacy, and they pass it on to each new litter, ensuring that resilience doesn't die with them, but continues, inscribed in the genes of those who will one day occupy these same burrows. Every gesture this woman makes reminds us that at Glacier, motherhood isn't just about care, it's about sacrifice. She risks her life, expends energy she'll never recover, and faces faster, deadlier predators. All for one reason: to ensure their offspring survive the harshest winter in the United States. The forest remains silent, broken only by the crunch of snow under their paws. The female returns to the burrow with enough food for another day. There, the calves will receive the warmth and sustenance they need. And so, day after day, life goes on in Glacier, even when the ice seems eternal. But nothing is, because in this ecosystem, nothing remains static for too long. As the weeks pass, sunlight begins to gain ground. The snow melts, water makes its way down the valleys, and the ice finally gives way. And a new question arises: How does life in Glacier transform when winter ends and the most unpredictable season of all takes its place? The sun rises a little higher over the peaks of Glacier, and for the first time in months, its rays break through the thick cloud cover to illuminate the valley below. The ice begins to crack, and the sound of moving water breaks the deathly silence of winter. What seemed eternal finally gives way. The deadliest season slowly recedes, and the national park begins a transformation that will change everything. Nothing is permanent here, not even the most brutal cold. In late March and throughout April, Glacier's weather becomes unstable. It's not a linear change. Late-season snowstorms alternate with days of sudden thaw. The soft soil is covered with puddles that soon boil with activity, and the water released from its frozen prison carries nutrients and prepares the ground for an inevitable rebirth. In every corner of the park, from the valleys to the highest plateaus, the fauna responds immediately. The first to take advantage of this opportunity are the little ones. Beetles and mosquitoes emerge from the stagnant waters, becoming easy and abundant prey for anyone who can resist a little more hunger. Among them, the wood frog offers a striking example of extreme adaptation. During winter, your body literally freezes. Your blood circulates loaded with glucose, which acts as a natural anti-freeze. Her vital organs stop, her heartbeat disappears, and she lies stiff under the snow. Now, with the thaw, hundreds of these tiny frogs appear to be returning from the dead. They croak in unison and rush to breed in temporary pools that will dry up in a few weeks. In this context, every minute counts because the window for leaving offspring is narrow. Meanwhile, the park's skies fill with movement. Flocks of geese return in formation, following ancient migratory routes that lead them to lakes barely freed from ice. Ducks and mallards flutter in noisy flocks, occupying waters that had been inaccessible for months. Among the residents, the ptarmigan offers a spectacle of transformation. Its snowy white winter plumage begins to fall, replaced by a mottled disguise that blends in with the grass and rocks. Their molting is not an aesthetic detail. It is a survival mechanism that protects them from predators in an environment that changes at dizzying speeds. In the rivers and streams that flow again, the fish resume their movements, and the birds of prey know it. An osprey circles, watches the reflection in the water, swoops down and emerges with a still-breathing fish in its talons. After months of scarcity, each prey recovered from the river means enough energy to sustain itself and, above all, to feed the chicks who will soon demand attention in the nest. But all this change doesn't only happen in the air, as medium-sized mammals are quick to take advantage of the first fresh grasses that sprout on the slopes. Mule deer descend into the valleys, deeply weakened, but still alive. Mothers, exhausted by winter, desperately seek to regain their strength to produce milk and ensure that the previous year's offspring can survive the transition. The same thing happens with moose, which tear off tender shoots from bushes. Their enormous bodies bear the marks of months of hardship, but the reproductive cycle does not wait. The urgency to recover energy is mixed with the need to ensure offspring, and every choice these days can determine whether a genetic line continues or disappears. On the highest cliffs, mountain goats move with precision over the rocks still covered in snow. Females lead the previous winter's young to clearings where the first grasses emerge. There, between the wet stone and the melting ice, they are taught to tear off each green leaf with their teeth. It's a basic but vital learning. Without it, they won't survive the next winter. For predators, spring offers a different scenario. The thaw reveals the carcasses of animals that didn't make it through the winter. Crows and wolverines prey on this carrion, while the Canadian lynx sets out in pursuit of snowshoe hares who now find less protection in the soft snow. After months of starvation, carnivores find in this transition an opportunity to regain their strength. What is rebirth for some is a true feast for others. In Glacier, hope is not universal. It is always intertwined with loss. The paradox is evident. The park's rebirth means abundance for some and death for others. The lives of newly revitalized herbivores feed the predators that depend on their success. Thus, the cycle begins again on this earth. Resistance, death, and once again continuity. Hope never comes alone. It always comes with a price. But not all creatures rush outside as soon as the snow recedes. Some wait. Beneath the rock, in damp and dark caves, inhabitants who have not lived through the winter remain awake. Their bodies remained motionless for months, plunged into a deep lethargy that protected them from hunger and cold. His awakening is slow, heavy, almost painful. Soon they will emerge, dragging with them the mystery of those who sleep while everything around them struggles and dies. And the inevitable question arises, what happens when the beasts that sleep in silence decide to open their eyes to the renewed world? In the Glacier Mountains, the end of winter awakens the guardians of nature. The snow begins to retreat from the valleys, the rivers are freed from the ice, and the first streams of water announce that the cycle has taken another step forward. Amid the rocks and thickets, a dark figure moves slowly. It's a grizzly bear emerging from its den, pushing the snow accumulated at the entrance with the weight of its weakened body. His gait is clumsy at first, as if the outside world seemed alien to him after so many months of lethargy. The still damp fur holds traces of frost, and beneath the thick layer of fur, the bones mark a silhouette eroded by hibernation. During the winter, she has lost up to a third of her weight. Each step reveals a vulnerability that contrasts with the strength that normally defines her. Beside him, still inside the burrow, a small body moves. It's her cub, barely a few months old. Still curled up against the earthen wall, he clings to the safety of the shelter while his curious eyes peer out into the light. Their movements are clumsy. Their short legs sink into the snow. The contrast between the mother's weakness and the fragility of the calf highlights the challenge they face in this spring awakening. Hunger dictates fate. After weeks without food, the bear urgently needs to regain energy. Its slender body demands roots hidden under the moist soil, early berries, or the meat of some animal that has fallen during the winter. And although motherhood ties her to her child, the need for food forces her to make risky decisions. The mother moves toward the forest, trusting that the safety of the den will protect her young. He trudges away, disappearing among the trunks and clearings, leaving behind the puppy's restless murmur. The hours pass. The wait in the dimness of the burrow becomes long, and soon, curiosity begins to overcome fear. The little puppy, with the instinct of a premature explorer, ventures out. His paws dig into the soft snow, and his snout smells an air full of unknown aromas. He moves uncertainly, stops, and then moves forward again. Little by little, loneliness begins to push him toward the unknown. The forest envelops him in shadows, creaks, and echoes that bounce between the pines, turning his curiosity into an unstoppable impulse. Innocence drives him onward, unaware that each step takes him further away from his mother's protection. In the distance, a howl cuts through the air. Moments later, another howl responds, and the forest's melody changes pitch. It's the unmistakable sign that a pack is moving. Wolves patrol the territory, alert to any opportunity the season presents. After months of scarcity, hunger also creeps in. Their senses pick up the traces of movement, the faint scent of a young animal. In this relentless ecosystem, loneliness becomes the inevitable gateway to danger. The footsteps come closer, first like a murmur in the snow, then like an invisible fence that closes in. The puppy stops, sniffs the air, senses the threat without understanding it. Among the trees, the eyes of the wolves flash. The strategy is ancient: surround, close the distance, confuse. The little one tries to back away, but his short legs don't respond to the speed required by the situation. The outcome is inevitable. The pack reaches him in seconds. The grey bodies launch themselves with precision, jaws close, growls mix with the pup's brief squeal. The forest falls silent again. There is no evil here, only the urgency to survive. Wolves feed. Their pups wait in the safety of a shelter, and every bite ensures the continuity of the group. What means the end for one means life for many. In the harsh dance of nature, the death of one nourishes many. Balance is maintained by sacrifice, and in each cycle someone takes the place of the prey to support the hunter. Hours later, the mother returns. Her steps drag on tiredness, but also an unbreakable instinct to return to the place where she left her cub. She moves slowly, sniffing every corner of the forest. The air carries fragments of signs, the fresh trail of multiple footprints, a penetrating smell of wolves and blood mixed with snow. He stops several times. His snout dips toward the ground, his ears pricked. He follows an uneven path, skirts around tree trunks, and inspects footprints. Every step seems dictated by the urgency of finding her puppy, even as the certainty of what's lost begins to creep in. The forest envelops him in shadows, creaks, and echoes that bounce between the pines, turning his curiosity into an unstoppable impulse. Innocence drives him onward, unaware that each step takes him further away from his mother's protection. In the distance, a howl cuts through the air. Moments later, another howl responds, and the forest's melody changes pitch. It's the unmistakable sign that a pack is moving. Wolves patrol the territory, alert to any opportunity the season presents. After months of scarcity, hunger also creeps in. Their senses pick up the traces of movement, the faint scent of a young animal. In this relentless ecosystem, loneliness becomes the inevitable gateway to danger. The footsteps come closer, first like a murmur in the snow, then like an invisible fence that closes in. The puppy stops, sniffs the air, senses the threat without understanding it. Among the trees, the eyes of the wolves flash. The strategy is ancient. Surround, close the distance, confuse. The little one tries to back away, but his short legs don't respond to the speed required by the situation. The outcome is inevitable. The pack reaches him in seconds. The grey bodies launch themselves with precision. Jaws close, growls mix with the pup's brief squeal. The forest falls silent again. There is no evil here, only the urgency to survive. Wolves feed. Their pups wait in the safety of a shelter, and every bite ensures the continuity of the group. What means the end for one means life for many. In the harsh dance of nature, the death of one nourishes many. Balance is maintained by sacrifice, and in each cycle someone takes the place of the prey to support the hunter. Hours later, the mother returns. Her steps drag on tiredness, but also an unbreakable instinct to return to the place where she left her cub. She moves slowly, sniffing every corner of the forest. The air carries fragments of signs, the fresh trail of multiple footprints, a penetrating smell of wolves and blood mixed with snow. He stops several times. His snout dips toward the ground, his ears pricked. He follows an uneven path, skirts around tree trunks, and inspects footprints. Every step seems dictated by the urgency of finding her puppy, even as the certainty of what's lost begins to creep in. Move forward into the burrow and find emptiness. He walks the perimeter, tracking persistently, sniffing the snow and the disturbed earth. He tries to reconstruct what happened from the signs, but silence is his only response. Absence weighs on the air as much as the snow that still covers the ground. She stands still for a moment, tilting her head, as if trying to listen to something that's no longer there. Her eyes reflect a mixture of confusion and acceptance. Nature grants no respite. The mother must continue. Her footsteps fade away, heading back into the forest. Instinctive mourning is left behind, and survival takes the place of pain. She remains standing because the cycle demands it. The forest keeps moving. The herd thrives on the meat obtained. The bear adapts, seeks new routes, new territories. Both paths are based on the same principle: to resist in an environment where nothing is certain. Because its story doesn't end with loss, nature remakes itself through its cycles. Grizzly bears can give birth every 2 to 4 years, and the hope for new cubs is ingrained in their very instinct. The force of life always finds a channel. Winter finally gives way, the ice melts, the valleys open up to green. And although death has marked its passage, so has continuity. The mother bear carries on, the wolves feed their offspring, and the forest maintains the balance that has sustained it for millennia. Although loss is inevitable, the force of nature endures. In Glacier, the cycle repeats itself, eternal, unbreakable, reminding us that life and death walk together on the same path. In the mountains of Glacier, Montana, winter slowly relinquishes its hold. The snow-covered peaks reflect the early sunlight, and the valleys remain wrapped in a heavy silence, interrupted only by the crunching of ice and the murmur of streams beginning to thaw. This extreme and seemingly inhospitable environment is also the setting for a resilient life, where each creature faces a constant challenge to survive, reproduce, and perpetuate its lineage. Among the secrets of these mountains unfold stories of loyalty and survival. Wolf packs have taught us the strength of unity. The alpha female and her offspring demonstrate that hierarchy is not a whim, but a mechanism that ensures the continuity of life, that each member has access to food and protection, and that the group can withstand the ravages of nature and predators. For their part, deer migrate following the rhythms of snow and vegetation, depending on each other to detect dangers and find the corridors that allow them to cross difficult terrain. Every baby that takes its first steps, every individual that manages to escape a predator, strengthens the chain of life in this ecosystem. Eagles protect their chicks with fierce zeal, and smaller animals, such as red squirrels, show cunning and foresight, storing up reserves for the coming months. Grizzly bears, whose prolonged winter leaves them vulnerable upon awakening, exhibit the same absolute priority, protecting their offspring, teaching them to hunt, and guiding their development in a world fraught with risk. In this corner of the planet, motherhood is not a gesture of affection but a vital strategy, an act of courage and resilience that defies the harshness of Glacier. In this scenario, where temperatures can drop to the limits of survival, the paradox becomes evident. In a world where life could be defined by individual struggle, constant competition, and selfish survival, the species here reveal another principle. Cooperation, protection of the young, and the transmission of knowledge become the most powerful tools. There are no hugs, no tenderness that humans would recognize, but there is a language of caring that cuts through the constant threat. Wolves defend each other, deer watch over their pack, eagles teach their chicks to fly, and mother bears risk their own safety for their young. It is a silent care based on the need for survival that ensures that each generation has the opportunity to persist. This flow of life and death, of teaching and protection, highlights that motherhood and offspring are the beating heart of Glacier. Every creature that manages to survive, every young animal that reaches the age of being able to fend for itself, is a victory against the relentless forces of climate, food shortages, and predators. The paradox is that in the toughest place, where every day seems an insurmountable challenge, these instinctive acts of care and transmission of life become more evident, more vital, and more heroic. Snow-capped peaks, dense forests, and rivers winding through valleys aren't just a landscape. They're the matrix that forges these stories of resilience. The strength of the ecosystem lies in the way each species, from the smallest squirrel to wolves and bears, participates in a balance that ensures the continuity of life. It's not always fair or perfect because nature takes its toll and some perish in the attempt. But those who survive carry with them the tools and knowledge that ensures the next generation has the opportunity to flourish. Glacier is not just a setting, it's a silent protagonist that challenges, teaches, and shapes its inhabitants. Their harshness transforms everyday life into a constant act of resistance, and each rebirth of spring bears witness to the perseverance of the species that call these mountains home. Motherhood and offspring are the invisible threads that weave the continuity of life, and in this unforgiving environment, these instinctive forces become law, demonstrating that solidarity and cooperation are not human attributes, but vital strategies for survival. In the heart of Glacier, the cycle continues. The snow slowly retreats, food becomes more accessible, and the animals that survived the winter show their vitality. Mothers protect and teach, young explore and learn, and predators adapt to the rules this extreme environment imposes. Here, in this corner of the Earth, though death is inevitable and the struggle constant, Glacier's strength endures, and with it, the life that nourishes, protects, and perpetuates each generation. Motherhood, offspring, and cooperation are revealed as the silent victories that defy winter, ensuring that the cycle continues, unchanging, relentless, and beautiful. This is the testimony of an ecosystem where life, even in its harshest forms, always finds a way.